So I'm here today with Paul Ehrenreich and Peter Gottesman, who are with Cresa, the largest commercial real estate company in the U.S. that represents tenants. And you call yourselves tenant brokers or tenant advocate brokers. What exactly is that?
Well, a tenant broker, or tenant advisor, as we like to say, is a firm who only represents commercial tenants or users of office space in the market. And how that differs from conventional brokers is that conventional brokers represent both tenants and landlords. And in fact, that's what most brokers do right now. We are one of the few that do not. So what distinguishes us is that we do not have conflict of interest that these other brokers will. They are working for both the landlord and for you, so they have obligations to both sides. And when you're at a negotiating table, it's kind of hard to negotiate when your advocate has mixed agendas. He is obligated to bring tenants to his client, the landlord broker. So how do you know you're getting objective advice when that broker is saying, let's look at this building, let's look at that building? Every building we would show you, we have no stake in. We're not allowed to invest in real estate, own real estate. We're not allowed to represent landlord brokers at all. So.
Excellent, good point. So how's the market?
The market is trending very well now for tenants. We've seen a big overhang recently in space available, and the space has trended to be on the market for anywhere from 12, in some cases up to 4 years. And tenants are being able now to take advantage of that in terms of not only a better rental rate, but getting a very large tenant improvement allowance, typically depending on the location anywhere from $50 up to $85 to even $90 a square foot. On top of that, there's rental abatement. One of the things we try and negotiate for is to be able to use some of those tenant improvement dollars for other things beyond actually building out the office space. For example, furniture,
That's
soft
new.
costs like cabling and wiring, potentially even the ability, depending on the tenant, is to possibly get a refund back if the allowance is not used. We just negotiated a deal recently where the tenant allowance and the build-out numbers were so substantially different that we were able to get an extra $42,000 for our client, and they would use that for anything they wanted, including furniture.
So what kind of trends are you seeing? What are tenants asking for?
I think what tenants are looking for now is to reduce costs, reduce their footprint, the size of their facilities. Everyone right now is concerned about how the economy is trending. We've got an election coming up. That's also cause for a little, not so much concern, but uncertainty. And so as a result, tenants are looking for ways of reducing their overhead. So that's something that we're ideally suited for, because again, our interests are strictly with the tenant, and we look to nourish our long-term relationships with those tenants. So we help them to define and determine ways to reduce costs by becoming more efficient, downsizing office space, moving into markets and buildings that are less expensive than where they are now.
You say green is important.
Yes, tenants are now much more attuned to the environmental concerns that are out there. So we see tenants now, for the most part, certainly asking the question about green buildings. Most new buildings that are being built now are LEED certified and are green. So it's a question that comes up with every tenant: is this building green? What do I need to do to be in a green building? What do I need to do to make my space environmentally friendly?
Also, a lot of buildings are now getting Energy Star, which is a efficiency factor in terms of the building's utilities. And going into a building like that means that your base year for operating expenses will be a little bit lower than they would have been otherwise. And that's something else we offer now. We have the ability now to audit a landlord's books. As long as we can negotiate in the lease, you're right, the tenant's right to audit the landlord's books. We have a staff that can go in, look at the reconciliation statements every spring and the annual pass-throughs, and basically using a benchmark determine if in fact that tenant may be overcharged. And we will be permitted by that tenant to go to the landlord and ask questions about the operating expenses.
So that's something you recommend that you negotiate into the lease?
We are very careful when we negotiate the operating expenses and the real estate taxes, but specifically the operating expenses, in such a way as we will try and carve out things that should not be passed through as operating expenses, including the cost of expenses where the landlord would put new elevators in, would basically redo the lobby. Those are things that's a capital expense that cannot be passed through, and we want to make sure that that is not part of a tenant's operating expenses.
Well, great. Thanks so much for joining me today.
You're very welcome.
Thanks for watching the Matrix Minute. Don't forget to connect with us on our blog and social media. For more information, go to matrixgroup.net.